This is Basic, the Atari 8-bit podcast.
This is an interview episode of Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. I'm Kevin Savitz. So, on December 12, 2015, I bought an unusual Atari computer on eBay. It appeared to be a typical 800XL, but where the Atari name would have been, there was a sticker that said, Graphics 1, the Wilcox Company. Another sticker on the bottom of the computer indicated that the company was based in Washougal, Washington. When I received the computer, I found that it included a handmade cartridge that contains a message display program. You can enter a few lines of text, plus the time and date, which is then displayed in large letters on the screen. I wanted to know more about this computer and the company that created it, so I hunted down Bryon Wilcox. This interview took place on January 27, 2016. Check the show notes at ataripodcast.com for pictures of the computer and the message display program in action.
Yeah, Kevin, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
You did a hell of a detective job.
Thank you.
You bet.
It was tricky. I bet
it was.
I got on eBay. I got this computer, an Atari computer that was branded with a sticker that says the Wilcox Company, and It was in some Washougal, Washington, and I live in Portland, so I'm like, oh, it's kind of. So I bought this thing, and then
you're in Portland, okay?
Yeah.
All right.
And then I bought this thing, and part of the reason I bought it, frankly, was I thought it was interesting that it was rebranded, and then you could sort of see in the picture on eBay a cartridge, and I'm just like, I bet that's a super rare cartridge that was like made, and I bet there's 10 of them in the world, and so it wasn't mentioned in the thing. So I bought it, and sure enough, it has this message display program. Anyway, so that's I want to know basically about your company, about what you were trying to do with these Ataris, what this machine was supposed to be. I want you to tell me the story.
Okay, well, I don't know if you remember the Ataris very well, but they came out with Pong and let's see, what else did they have on there? I think Pong was the big one. And, that's where you'd sit in front of the TV and bounce the little ball back and forth, and
Very
the two
familiar.
cursors go up and down, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
And simple game, but people just loved it. Well, my father had been working on a program for siren control for early warning systems. And all we had to work with was a 16K chip. And, back then it was either random access or ROM, read-only memory, or you could buy read-write chips.
What is Simon control?
Right. It was just like early warning for disasters, floods, bad weather, that kind of thing. And just a chip to activate these remotely. Most of them you had to, in those days, you had to go back and, turn them on manually. So anyhow, in our time doing it, I think there was 16K there of actually kilobits, not bytes. So essentially you got 8 bits to a byte, right?
Right.
So you had 16,000 of these to work with, and it took 8 to make a character. Well, we started screwing around with that and found that we could do the entire alphabet on a chip, and then we started screwing around and found, well, we could actually put this out to a TV the same way Atari does. And so we wrote these chips. And then we started that in our garage in Washougal. As time went on, do you remember at all about the time when there was a kind of conspiracy theory thing going on that Atari was burying their machines down south somewhere?
Yeah, in Alamogordo, New Mexico. Yeah.
Oh, New Mexico, yeah. You know about it then.
Yeah.
Well, back then...
They did a movie about it recently, a documentary.
Well, did they really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll be damned. Well, anyhow, they ruined our business. We couldn't buy Ataris. And we'd been selling them to, like sporting goods stores, bowling alleys, anybody that wanted to advertise on a moving screen that they could wipe out, type in new information, scroll it horizontally or vertically. Mm-hmm. And so then when Atari went through this thing and they disappeared, that took us out of that ball game. And then we had to go off and get into other computer stuff.
All right, so I want to go back a little bit. So
Sure.
basically, you had this. Who was supposed to be using? You said bowling alleys, and who was supposed to be using this? And were you buying how you were buying Ataris and then rebranding them? Where did the software come from? Did you create it yourself, or?
Well, it wasn't really software; it was hardware in a sense, because these were hard coded
Right. The cartridges, yeah.
read write read write ROMs, and so we sold them to anybody that wanted to advertise in a storefront window. The bowling alleys, we used it for their advertising, the big television screens that they had. And we would put advertising information up for those tournaments, that kind of thing. And so anybody really in any advertising mode. I mean, you remember when the reader boards came out, right? With the lights scrolling across?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
this essentially took place before those came out.
Right. The how many of these things did you sell?
You know, probably 20 or 30.
Mm-hmm.
We had a little assembly line set up, like I said, in the garage, and we'd program them and take them out and sell them and come back and do some more.
Huh. Nice. And so you program the EPROMs by hand? I assume it's an EPROM in there, in the
With a burner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with a burner, exactly.
Cool. And does it save? Does it save the message in a non-volatile fashion if I turn off the machine and turn it back on again? I guess I should have just tested that myself, but
No.
Okay.
It goes away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
The program stays, but the information you type in was volatile.
So I assume that you had to just hoof it by just sell these to little bowling alleys and whatever, just one at a time. That must have been. So I assume most of them got sold in the Washington area, I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. Washington and Oregon. Yeah, and then, as time went on, once we kind of got kicked out of that as a result of not being able to buy Ataris anymore, we started building computers, buying parts from all kinds of different manufacturers.
Like building PC-compatible sort of things?
Well, yeah, we actually started with Commodore, doing CPM machines. And are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I don't know how far back you go. You don't sound that old.
Well, so. I'm 44, but I think about Atari computers a lot. So
okay. Well, you're about the age of my kids then. So anyhow, we started with CPMs. We started importing the little Commodores. And then we started doing our own PC business. Now, this was before Microsoft. This was before IBM. Mm-hmm. We were just buying motherboards, buying processors. We started off with like 360K floppies. That's all we had. And then we would develop software on those little databases and stuff like that. And, nothing that went real commercial. It was just mostly hardware stuff. We were just screwing around. Mm-hmm. Well, then when we got our first hard drive, if I remember right, I think it might have been a Western Digital. I don't remember for sure, but it was a 10 megabyte hard drive. Then once we figured out how to format those and actually put a lot of software. You could never write enough software to put on a drive that big after dealing with 16K chips. Right. So anyhow, we started putting those together, and people wanted to buy them. They started buying them, and we went, well, yeah, we can. And then word processors came out. The simple ones, the little spreadsheets, the Lotus 1-2-3 spreadsheets came out. So we started loading these things up, and we'd write batch files for people so that the ones that didn't know how to operate in DOS could just, go into the C prompt, and it'd bring up a little menu, and, hit A, and it would take you to your spreadsheet programmer, hit B and take you to your word processor, and that's how we started. And then we built that business up over the next 15 years to doing about $4 or $5 million a year and employing about 40 people.
Wow. And this company was called Byte Company?
Well, we had two names, actually. The one we started with was Bugs Warehouse Computers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you did some research, you could find in, like, Oregon Business Magazine, we were in the top 10 or 20 privately held corporations in Oregon. And then we decided to open a business side, so we opened up CSI Systems Inc., and we started doing networking with TenNet and Novell and stuff like that. TenNet was a card-based 100 megabit per second hardwired network, kind of used like telephone wire.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did that. Then we got in trouble with. We started learning how to do disk management and use some special optimizing software to make partitions that were larger on hard drives. Before, once they came out with 40 meg, you could only do so many partitions, and there were limits on everything. Limits on the number of interrupt requests you had to run devices. I don't know if you're familiar with any of this, but serial ports had limits.
Right, yeah.
And so we started doing things in that arena where we could make the machines do a little bit more than they were really capable of.
Yes.
And then Windows came out, and that's about the time that things started turning into... it was more like selling refrigerators,
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. A commodity.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's really pretty much the story.
All right. I think I have one more question, I think, about the Atari stuff. You said, and I understand Atari in 1984 so was having problems, and they dumped a lot of inventory and all that stuff. But from my perception, I think it would have gotten easier for you to get the computers cheaper because they were being sold at fire sale prices, but you said you couldn't get them anymore. So I'm confused there. Can you elaborate on?
We couldn't find them. We used to go to Penny's and buy them, and they went away.
Yeah.
And now, back then, I didn't, I don't even remember looking for used stuff because you normally only bought new.
Right.
But, so no, we never even got into that side of it. It was just, we'd go down and buy them, and then all of a sudden they disappeared.
So you bought them at retail, and then...
Yeah, we bought them at retail, yep.
And then how much more did you sell them for with your software and sticker?
Oh, God, now you're really stretching it. I couldn't even remember how much we sold them for.
I'm just curious.
Yeah,
nice.
No problem.
No.
I'd like to give you an answer, but I'd just be guessing.
Sure. No, I was just wondering what a
it wasn't. Let me put it this way. It wasn't a big money maker, but we enjoyed what we were doing. We were having a blast. Nice,
fun. All right. Is there anything else I should have asked you about that time that I didn't?
I don't. It sounds to me like you're pretty much focused in on the Ataris, and that was a real short period for us, and that was really more translating an already existing hardware program that my father had built to just a different use was all. It was just repurposed, essentially.
Right. What was the original use? Tell me again.
I'm sorry?
What was the original purpose of it? Tell me again.
Well, the original purpose was for early warning systems.
Oh, right.
To have remote access and to put out different tones. So, one tone for bad weather, one tone for a national emergency, one tone for a flood, that kind of thing.
And was this something that would be used by a TV station, or?
Oh, it could have been used by county and federal governments.
Mm-hmm. Was it?
And I don't know whether they continued with that stuff or not, because when my father moved back here from back east, he was a professor over there. When he moved back over here, we just kind of dropped that thing completely. Didn't really get involved with it.
Interesting.
And if he did something outside of that, I wasn't aware of it.
All right. Huh.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Bryon. I appreciate your time today.
It's been great. You have a nice day.
You too. Bye. If you enjoy these interviews and would like to contribute something, I encourage you instead to donate to one of our favorite organizations, the Internet Archive, at archive.org. The Internet Archive is a nonprofit digital library with the stated mission of universal access to all knowledge. They've done incredible things to preserve computer history, including hosting thousands of programs in an in-browser Atari emulator, creating the Wayback Machine, and offering full-page scans of countless Atari computer books and magazines. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate.